I live in Northern Virginia. I grew up in Northern Virginia. I still live in Northern Virginia. The demand of transportation is something I understand. I've lived with it my whole life. I understand the priority of it, both from a quality of life standpoint and from an economic standpoint. In 2007, when I was in the Virginia State Senate from Fairfax, I voted for the compromise transportation bill that year. Unfortunately, when it got out of the General Assembly, the Governor Kane amended it and made it unconstitutional, and the bill collapsed the next year when the Supreme Court of Virginia ruled it unconstitutional. This year's bill in 2013, I did not support. I supported Senator Newman's alternative. It got 18 votes in the Senate, but you need 21. And when that bill came out of the General Assembly, it was not constitutional. And my office went to work to offer alternatives to the governor and to the legislature to get the bill within the boundaries of the Constitution, my first priority as Attorney General. And so the options we offered to the governor, you all saw which ones he took there in the veto session, and the bill has now become law. We're several months into it, and it has not been challenged, unlike in 2007. I believe the experience of 2007 gave people pause in the system to listen to what we had to say about how to get the bill to be constitutional. That bill is now passed into law. I don't intend to go back and try and undo the bill. Now the question is, looking forward, who can best get the most transportation out of every transportation dollar? And this is one of those areas where my opponent's union affiliations come in and make an enormous difference in terms of just pure dollars. Just to give you one example from Northern Virginia, where I live, the Silver Line extension, the expansion of the metro outside of Washington, D.C., was broken into two phases. Phase 2 was budgeted for by the Airports Authority, which is in charge of running this program, was budgeted for about $1.8 billion roughly to include project labor agreements, guaranteed union contracts. Needless to say, this is something that I and many others, including Governor McDonnell, found objectionable. And Governor McDonnell said, if you want to get state money, you've got to bid this out without the project labor agreements. And while they groused, they bid it out without the guaranteed union contracts and saved $300 million. That's an enormous difference in the price tag of half of one project. We can do an awful lot of transportation with $300 million. That'll pave a lot of roadway, it'll build a lot of lane miles, or it'll fill a lot of potholes. Or it'll do wonders staying in the economy and being reinvested. It is that kind of difference that the union connection makes in transportation. And I'm running against someone who has walked picket lines. He did that in 2009 when he was running for governor. And he's also been someone who has been dramatically supported by unions. And in transportation, when you see Commonwealth Transportation Board appointments, when you see Airports Authority, Port Authority appointments, the contracts they enter into are where those unions are going to get their money out of Terry McAuliffe. And he'll happily give it to them. To put it in simple terms, a Governor McAuliffe would never have pushed back on the unions the way Governor McDonnell did when the Airports Authority was ready to bid out a project labor agreement contract. What does that mean for Virginia businesses? Well, 96% of Virginia businesses aren't unionized. And so project labor agreements effectively box out Virginia businesses overwhelmingly. They gut the competition by Virginia businesses for Virginia public projects. I think that's unconscionable. It's something that I would oppose strenuously and that my opponent would frankly embrace and support. Look at who's supporting him for this race for governor. He's receiving extraordinary amounts of money from unions. He said he's for collective bargaining in the past for public employees. Those are major problems and major distinctions between him and me. One of the areas I talked earlier in our questions about Medicaid reform, I also am looking very hard at VDOT reform so we can deliver more of our transportation dollars to transportation. And that sounds so simple, but you all know how inefficient the system can be sometimes. I also want to see us integrate our localities more into the decision-making and responsibility roles for transportation. Virginia is one of the most centralized states in the whole country for how we handle transportation. I want to give localities and regional impact more influence on how our transportation dollars get spent. One way to look at it is 4 years from now, if I'm elected governor, I hope the governor and Richmond will have less say in how transportation dollars are spent in the regions and localities than they do today. That's one of my goals, is to reduce that influence. So those are some forward-looking goals that I believe will free up our transportation dollars. I should note that transportation dollars under a Cuccinelli administration will always, always, always be used just for transportation, something that's been a problem in the past. I support locking up those revenues just for transportation use. That's something I'm very committed to, and I voted for in the state Senate when I was there over the course of 7 sessions.